Namaskar, everyone. Welcome to our YouTube channel, Scientific Temperament Cybersecurity Council. So this will be the first video of the series apart from the introductory one. And throughout the series, we will be learning about different techniques and tools which are being used in the field of cybersecurity by different penetration testers or ethical hackers or different bug bounty researchers, or we can say that the forensics experts. So this will be the first one of the most basic and common video which are available in internet. So through this video, we will be installing a Kali Linux, which is one of the most like common requirements. And for this, the Kali Linux, one of our most favorite tools, we'll be using. We'll be learning to install the OS, Kali Linux OS, on our host operating system, Windows 10. The machine is running on Windows 10 64-bit version. So let's start, shall we? Okay. So what are virtual machines? Like the machines which are not real, right? Virtual, which is not real. We can say that we have the host operating system, right? Here we have the host operating system, that is the host OS, and the host OS is running on the hardware. It is running on the hardware, and in the hardware, the host OS is running, and inside the host OS, we can configure the system in such a way that we can install different guest operating systems on top of the host operating system with the help of a type of software known as Hypervisor, which is known as Hypervisor. So there are two types of hypervisors actually. There is the one which is type 1, which can be said as type 1, and there is another one which is type 2. So what we will be learning here is basically type 2 hypervisors. The main difference between type 1 and type 2 hypervisor is that the type 2 hypervisors requires host OS. That is, one of the host operating system is required on the top of which the type 2 hypervisors will be installed. And then there is the type 1 hypervisors, which can be installed without the help of any host OS. In any machine, we can deploy type 1 hypervisors as well. So type 1 hypervisors we'll be learning in another video. That is the topic for another video. And in this one, we'll be learning about type 2 hypervisors. Okay. So type 2 hypervisors will be, there are few examples actually. That is the one which is parallel. Then there is one VMware. And then there is one virtual box. So I personally prefer VirtualBox. So we will be installing and we will be using our Kali Linux operating system in the VirtualBox, inside the VirtualBox. So what does a hypervisor basically do? Actually, is that it will take out some resources, like it will tell the host operating system that give me some resources, and that resources will be shared or used by the guest operating system. In this case, our Kali Linux. Okay, so before proceeding, let's answer some of the basic questions, like what kind of laptop or desktops would you prefer to get into the field of cybersecurity, or which laptops are more preferable, or which desktop setups are more preferable. So there are like three types. So these are not actually the minimum requirement which is specified by the vendor. These are more like they are minimum requirements depending on like today's practical scenario. Depending on today's practical scenario, these are like the minimum requirements. So the first one is that minimum 4-core processor, and the second is that minimum 8 GB of RAM. The third one is not actually the minimum requirement; it's more of a fundamental requirement. So that is one hard disk. So these are the minimum hardware specifications which are required to run most of the basic tools to pen test or different task in the field of cybersecurity. And then there is one which is the desired requirements. And now these are desired requirements. Now this is the one, like these are the desired requirements depending as in today's world. So the minimum like 6 or 8 core processor. So if you have a like 6 or 8 core processor, which is 12 or 16 threads and 16 GB of RAM and one SSD, then this should be more than enough. So most of the common scenarios can be handled by this desired requirement. So the third one is a professional requirement, not like that the previous two cannot be used by professionals, but these are to perform some more of an intensive task. So this is the requirement which is one of the, we can say, the luxurious requirement, or most of the time, most of the common scenarios will not be using the whole 100% uses of that particular system. So I think this will cover most of the basic questions, like what is the hardware requirement for this, to get into like what laptop should we buy, or what desktop configuration should we go for. Okay, so coming to our previous part, now we have understood what is a hypervisor, what is a host operating system, and what is a guest operating system. So first thing we need to do is that we need to install the VirtualBox. So let's go to Google Chrome and type VirtualBox download. I think I have misspelled. So the Oracle VM VirtualBox. So this is a website, and we need to install, as this is a new Windows OS, so we need to install Windows Post. So just click on the file and it will be automatically downloaded. And after getting downloaded, just click on install, and the default options to be sufficient, and it will create another network settings which will be used by the guest operating system. So VirtualBox is downloaded, and now let's download Kali Linux. Download. Get Kali Linux, the first one. So there are different ways to install Kali Linux. The one is that to install as a live boot, that is Kali Linux can be installed using a USB device. The second one is that the downloading as an ISO file and installing on the bare hardware without using any type of hypervisor. So Kali Linux is not kind of a daily driver for me, so we normally use this as a virtual machine. So virtual machine, if we click on the virtual machine one, then there is one VMware. So the machine we are using is 64-bit, so we will be clicking on 64-bit, and there is one the VMware one, and there is one the VirtualBox one. So we'll be using VirtualBox, and you can download using the normal file, or you can download using the torrent file. So let's click on download, and it will be downloaded. It's a 4 gigs of it's 4 gigs in size. Okay, so I have already downloaded this. Okay, so just click on the Oracle VirtualBox, and there you can see there are different tools, different OSs I have already installed. So we'll be installing Kali Linux. Let's go to the tools, and let's go to the import option. As this one is like we have downloaded the OVA file, right? So we'll be importing that one. If you have the ISO file, then you can just go to the new option, and you can just click on the type and Microsoft Windows. That is, it will be Linux here, and Oracle 64-bit. You can choose accordingly, Debian 64-bit, and you can go accordingly. Let's keep that for another video. Now in this one, let's import the machine. So you have the guided mode. This one is the guided mode, and let's choose and let's switch to expert mode, and let's click on this icon. Here you need to locate the file. So after browsing the downloaded file, it will show different options. Here is the CPU part. Let's change it to the number of CPUs, number of physical core CPUs will be providing to the machine. That is, I'm giving here 4, and by default it is 2, and by default the RAM size is 2 gigs, and we will be changing to 4 gigs. Okay, so these options we can change in the settings menu afterwards. So there is one option, that is the import hard drives as VDI. So I don't need the hard drives as virtual disk images, so I'll not be importing the hard drives as a virtual disk images. So let's import this one, and let's click agree. So it will be importing right now. So the Kali Linux virtual OVA file has been imported, and let's just click on the settings part and just check the different settings options. So let's zoom that a bit, and so here is the basic one, that is the name and the types, and there is the advanced one, and the next is the shared clipboard. So this shared clipboard and drag and drop, these two are very much one of the most important, most beloved features of this one. That is, we can drag and drop from the host OS to the guest OS, and that is the same from the guest OS to host OS. So these are one of the most beloved features. And then there is this one, the description. We don't need that one. So just check on the system part. The motherboard, in motherboard we are giving 6 gigs of RAM, and we are giving 4 CPU processors. This machine is having 6 core processors and no GPU. So the next is the display. So if you have 2 display monitors, then you can give the monitor core count to 1 or 2 depending on your personal preference. And there is the storage part, and then there is the network part, which can be configured to use net or bridge depending on the preference. So we'll be changing this a lot in the next upcoming videos. So next there is the serial port, and next there is the USB. So USB 3.0 is also available, and you can just configure if any kind of USB you would like to give. Next is the shared folders, and we do not need this as of now. So let's click on OK, and let's click on OK. So let's click on OK, and let's click on Start option. Okay, this is the first scene which we will be getting after clicking on Start. So the basic username is Kali, and the default password is Kali, and let's click on. So this is the default desktop mode, and we will need to change some default settings. Let's just open up the terminal and sudo I. So the default password is Kali, and let's now change the password. So password has been updated successfully. So the guest edition is automatically installed after Kali Linux 2021.3. So we don't need to install this additional guest VirtualBox guest edition. So the guest tools are automatically being installed, and we can just resize the menu depending on. Okay. So drag and drop is bidirectional, shared clipboard is bidirectional, and view is we can full screen mode or virtual screen. So these are the scale to 100%. So we can adjust accordingly. Okay. So we have learned how to install Kali Linux as a virtual machine, virtual operating system on top of Windows 10 using a hypervisor, type 2 hypervisor, that is VirtualBox. So just install the operating system, guest operating system, that is Kali Linux, on using a hypervisor, type 2 hypervisor on a host operating system. And after installing, do the basic stuff, that is like apt update or apt upgrade, and we will be installing different tools, and we will be learning to use different tools and techniques, which will in turn help us to get a job in the cybersecurity field or to learn more about the field. So we'll be learning a lot. I hope you have already known this. So this one is just the basic stuff. So one of the most common requirement, and we have learned to install this one. And from next video, we will be installing, and we will be learning, and we will be using different tools and different techniques to do some cool stuff. Okay, so that's all for today. We'll see you on the next video. Thank you.